I can try and talk louder. Can they hear me? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Yes, no? Verdict?
I can't get on.
Let's keep going.
Can you hear it? Okay, well we're going to start all over again.
Again?
Or should we just leave what's out there?
Start from the very top. We're doing it all. Just say we had difficult.
Ready?
Yes.
We're live? Okay,
Yep.
guys. As usual, we're having technical difficulties trying to figure out this live Facebook stuff, but we're very, very happy to be here at Oak City Brewery in the heart of Jacksonville, downtown Roselle Street. If you'd like to come and visit them, this is Jeremy, and he is brewmaster extraordinaire and
Official title is head brewer and production manager.
so he's going to have some beers for us today. We're going to take a tour of the facilities. Take it away.
All right, we've got some of our downtown brews here, which our downtown location is not currently open because of the virus, but our Roselle Street location is open every day. And the stuff that we make downtown is our sort of specialty one-off brews and all kinds of different special things that we do send out for distribution so that All Spiced Up can have it at their location as well. We'll start with malt liquor. I brought these over for you.
I already drank some of that.
It's just a high ABV but light, easy drinking beer that Alex made for us downtown. Just an example of something that we do downtown that's kind of different.
It doesn't taste like a high ABV. It's very, very easy.
Very drinkable, that's right.
Scott saying hi.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott, how are you? Good to have you on board.
Next up, we have our West Coast IPA called Divided We Will Fall. We did a East Coast IPA called United We Stand Tall, and then a West Coast IPA called Divided We Will Fall. So just give you an idea of how we do things. We do a lot of back and forth. All right, we've had this style, now try this style. So if you are rotating our downtown product through, you'll kind of see that with each different keg, something new and something different to talk about. You're going to get a lot of citrus and pine from this. There's that more sort of old school, classic IPA flavor to it. All of our core beer can lineup is the same artist, Kendrick Kidd with the Robert Shepard Group. He does all the artwork. The beer we just had is something real similar to our flagship IPA, which is the Mad Manatee. All Spiced Up does carry all 4 of our core brands in the can. We did talk a little bit about the mix. We didn't have sound. So if you get a 6-pack of each, Killer Whale and Dukes, or a single can, if you do that, I'm not sure. And mix it half and half in your glass, you'll have a completely new beer. We call it the Duke of Wales. That's our most popular mix in the tap room. A lot of people wish we could put that in the can.
One of my favorites.
I think what makes it good is doing it yourself too. It may not be as good if we did it beforehand.
It's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, it's fun.
Bronwyn
There's a lot of
sends her
mixes you can
love.
experiment with.
Hey, Bronwyn, right back at you.
My favorite mix is the Mad Dog, which is Mad Manatee and Duke's mix. A lot of people like the Red Dog, but
What do you call this one?
plenty of stuff. Mad Dog.
Oh, Mad Dog.
Alright, so we have to choose here. We can go with our teal pineapple seltzer that's been treated with coconut, or we can go with the sour IPA, which is probably the most sour beer we've made today. Alright, let's do it. So this is called the Wobbly Water. It's teal for the Jaguars, and this is the pineapple flavored Wobbly Water that has, we added some sweet coconut to it. So it's not quite pina colada, but it does have pineapple and coconut flavor. Yeah, absolutely. It works. The seltzer works great in cocktails. Kevin asked me to do this because he's a big fan of Sonic's Ocean Water. He's not pretty comfortable with that.
I get a lot. And the coconut isn't overwhelming. It's a good price of that. Yeah.
Good, refreshing, really good for summer.
They get them pretty.
The last one we have is a sour beer. Yeah, so my advice for people that aren't used to sour beers, or maybe are a little afraid to try a lot of them, always try them first, because you never know how sour they're going to be. But also, I recommend taking 2 sips Really, I say that for any beer, but especially sours, because that first sour, you're going to get that pucker factor. You're going to get almost like clenches your jaw, and the sourness is just really aggressive at first. But usually, once you've kind of acclimated to that, the second taste is where you get all the flavor, and you really start to understand the nuance of the style. All right, let's do it. Cheers. Super sour up front, and then you got this lingering kind of bitterness, but also like a fresh hop flavor going on. Yeah, a lot of citrus there for sure.
The second one does smell a little bit.
Yeah, sour is less aggressive, and you're able to ascertain what you're tasting a little bit better. That's my rule of thumb for sour. All right, done a tasting. You guys want to do a tour? If anybody has any questions, I think they can post them right on there, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. All right, so where do we start? Follow me. That's Tyler. Tyler's our main seller guy, goes by the nickname T-Bone. He runs our canning line and pretty much does anything that ever needs to be done. So.
Look at that, that's awesome.
Our empty cans there, we've got some clean kegs, it's also a storage. So clean kegs, dirty kegs,
And the train is great.
So what I usually do for the tour, I'll try to do an express version and not go into too much detail. Me being a brewer, I tend to talk about things in the brew process way more than I need to for the average person. But this is kind of where everything starts. There's 4 main ingredients to beer. You've got water, malt, hops, and yeast. So we're going to start by crushing up the malt. We have a couple silos outside. I'll show you at the end of the tour. That's where we get what they call our base malt, which is the majority of the grains that we're using. Malt's kind of a blanket term for all the grains that we're using. They've been malted or kilned to some degree. So the silo holds what they call our 2-row base malt. That makes up the majority of every beer that we make. And then we add what they call specialty malts or adjuncts, which could be wheat, could be corn, could be caramel malts, chocolate malts, all kinds of different grains that are sort of cooked or kilned to different degrees in order to give us mostly color and sweetness in the beer.
Not necessarily the flavor, or is it
It does contribute greatly to the flavor, but more of, I would say, like the sweet side of the flavor, whereas the hops are going to give you the balance of the bitterness there. But almost all the color is coming exclusively from the types of grains we use. But yes, also a ton of flavor as well. So in this room, it's a small room up there, that's where we keep all the specialty grains. We basically load everything up and send it through our roller mill, which crushes those grains up into what they call a fine grist. And we mix that with hot water at a certain temperature. If you want to just walk while I talk, by mixing those grains with the water, we're able to take those natural occurring starches, convert them into fermentable sugars, which is what the yeast is later on going to consume and turn into alcohol. Why don't you step around here? There's lots of hidden trap.
Is this water or beer?
That's water. We wouldn't waste beer like that. Just kidding. This is our brew house here. It's a 20-barrel system. That means every batch we make is about 620 gallons of beer. No, this is all part of the same system. So on the bookends of the brew house, we've got what they call our liquor tank. So one of them holds hot water, one of them holds cold water. And then our system works from a traditional setup. We've got mash tun, kettle, and whirlpool. Mash tun's where we start. So I crush up those grains, and I bring them into the mash tun with hot water, creating a sort of floating bed of grain and water in there. It mixes up really nice, a nice consistency. We let it rest and let certain conversions take place. And then we basically take the liquid and leave the grain behind. The grain we push out to a different silo where a farmer is going to come pick it up, going to go take it away, feed it to his cows and his pigs. The liquid is going to go into the kettle. At this point, it's what they call wort, W-O-R-T, and it's just basically sugar water. My job as a brewer really is less about making beer and more about making wort. So I'm trying to get a clarified sugar water that gives the yeast all the potential it needs to do what it wants to do, which is create beer out of the substance that I've made. So in the kettle, we've got this nice sugar water mix, and that's where we're going to boil it, boil off any impurities, sterilize it. Also gets rid of certain off flavors that come about. And that's also where we're going to add the hops. So now we have this super sweet, sugary substance, and we're going to balance that with some bitterness from the hops. And then, depending on the style, depends on how much hops you use and when you use them. So, an IPA is going to have a lot more hops than our cream ale does, and it might go at different times in the boil. So, earlier in the boil, you add the hops, the more bitterness you're going to extract. The later you add the hops in the boil, the more flavor and aroma you're going to get from those hops. After we're done boiling, which is typically an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the beer, we're then going to go into our third vessel, which is our whirlpool. That kind of gets everything moved in a circle, and kind of acts, I guess, like a mini centrifuge. It allows some more solids to separate out and kind of end up in the bottom. And then we're able to pull from the side of this vessel. So again, we're clearing that wort as much as possible. So we went from a real sort of like grainy, watery substance, and then we added a bunch of hops. We got rid of the grain, and we added a bunch of hops, and then we kind of spun that around in a circle, kind of got as much of those solids drop out. So whether it's proteins that have come along from the grains and coagulated during the boil, or hop particulate, things like that, we're trying to get most of that out. So now we have a nice, clear, slightly sweet, slightly bitter sugar water that we're pushing into these cone-shaped tanks behind y'all. These cone-shaped tanks are our fermenters. This is where the magic happens. This is where the yeast...
And it goes directly from here to there, Jeremy?
And we cool it down on the way. So it goes from being super hot to being fermentation, like room temperature, before it hits the tank. So we introduce it with the yeast. It starts working almost immediately. The yeast is going to consume any oxygen that's there, kind of ramp up, and then start fermentation. Now, when fermentation starts, it's creating two things. Creating the ethanol, which is what gets you drunk, gets temperature ABV, and then it also creates carbon dioxide. Now, at this stage in our process, we don't need that much carbon dioxide. So we actually let that come out, and you can see that happening here. So this batch was made yesterday, and you can see this is a bucket of sanitizer water, and you see all that activity, all those bubbles. That's actually CO2 escaping from the tank as fermentation is happening.
Not necessarily more liquid.
Right, no, it shouldn't be any liquid, although it does happen if the tank's really full and high crowd, then we'll get some flow off into the bucket. We keep it sanitizer and the off chance, if anything were to get in the line.
When do you know when it stops making bubbles?
Yeah, and we take certain readings. So we take what they call gravity readings. So we measure the amount of sugar we're done making the wort, and then we keep track of how much sugar is being consumed during fermentation. And then once you've gone about 48 hours without any more sugar being consumed, you know that you're at what they call terminal or final gravity. The beer's done, you can determine what your ABV is using all those numbers. And, we're doing mostly our core beers here, so we kind of have a pretty good idea of our checking it when it's ready. And then when it is ready, the bubbles will slow down, sugar will stop being consumed, alcohol will stop being produced. Once you're stable for a couple of days, you do what they call a cold crash. So these tanks are jacketed, and we can run a glycol solution through the tanks. So whenever we can actually control temperature that way. We make sure we stay within a certain range of for fermentation, and then when we're ready to stop, when we're done fermenting, when we're ready to drop out all the yeast, so to speak, we're going to drop that temperature down almost to freezing. So we're able to run super cold liquid through there without it actually freezing. Glycol's kind of like an antifreeze. And that's not in the beer, it's just in the tank walls. So it cools the liquid down to between 32 and 35 degrees. And that's the reason for this cone-shaped tank, is all that yeast that's in suspension is going to flocculate into this cone. We're going to pull off the yeast, and we'll harvest some of it. We reuse yeast here at Hernandez. But basically, pull off what we want to reuse, dump what we're not going to use. Again, that goes to a farmer. He uses it to speed up his compost. And then we're going to pull from this racking arm, which goes into kind of the middle of the tank, either up or down. And we're going to pull clear, flat, uncarbonated beer out of this tank and transfer it over to our flat bottom tank, which are called conditioning tanks or bright tanks, B-R-I-T-E. If we want to go on the other side, I'll show you what the bright tank looks like. So as far as fermenters, I didn't point it out, but we have 5 different fermenters. So we have 3 of them that are 40-barrel tanks. That means we have to brew twice to fill those. We have an 80-barrel fermenter, and we have a 120-barrel fermenter. The 120 is pretty much primarily Dukes. So you would ask if Dukes is our #1 seller. Well, the biggest tank is almost always Dukes.
Where do you put the flavor in? We're not there yet. What do you add for flavor? Like a pumpkin?
Yeah, so for special beers like that, if we're doing flavor, it just depends on the beer. So with our pumpkin ale that we do once a year, we actually add ingredients in the boil and in the whirlpool and in I want to say in primary fermentation as well. I'm trying to remember now.
Almost at every step a little bit?
Yeah, but it just depends on the beer, whether the ingredients need to be boiled or, whether we're using a puree that needs to go into fermentation, like a fruit puree that needs to be fermented, or whether we're using an extract that can be dosed directly into the bright tank. So there's tons of different ways depending on which flavors you're talking about. But all of our core beers and most of the downtown stuff too, spices will go on the hot side, they call it, which is like the brew house. And fruit and stuff's going to go on the cold side, which is not the brew house, fermentation or bright tank, things like that.
Jeremy, they basically have the same system downtown, but smaller?
Yes, a lot smaller. So where we have a 20-barrel system here, we have a 3.5-barrel system downtown.
That's why they do the smaller batches.
Yeah, exactly. We don't distribute very much of it. We keep a lot of it in-house. We usually send it between 6 and 10 6-barrel kegs out for distribution. Some move faster than others. So do flat bottom tanks for the bright tanks. That's where we carbonate the beer. So like I said, when we bring it over, it's clear and it's got alcohol. It's ready to go. It just needs carbonation. So we do what they call forced carbonation, where we use an arc stove. We can control the amount of PSI going in. It basically releases a small blanket of tiny CO2 bubbles into the liquid, and the liquid absorbs those bubbles, and over time, it gets to the proper amount of carbonation. So we actually have tools we can check it along the way, and we can pinpoint the exact volumes of CO2 within the liquid that we want. So we make sure that we're as consistent as possible, which is important for kegs that are going out, bars, restaurants, places like you guys. You want to make sure you're getting a product that's going to pour the same way on your taps every time without too much adjustment. But it's also really important for our canning line. Our canning line is right behind you, and canning can be sort of make sure that you're within a certain volume of CO2 with your product in order for it to behave the way that you expect it to. We have a Canadian canning line from Calgary. It's called Cask Brewing System. We can fill 5 cans at a time. Basically, we load an entire pallet up onto this depalletizer. It comes down a conveyor. They get pushed off of that onto a conveyor. They get flipped upside down and rinsed out. Flipped back right side up. They get sprayed with the date along the way. They get merged with CO2. They get filled with beer. They get another blanket of CO2 right before the cap goes on. And then they come on to the seamer where it puts the cap is actually these guys come in and make a hook and seal the whole can up. It gets rinsed off and dried off along the way, and then it comes out here, and the pack techs are put onto it with this machine. So they come out fully formed 6-packs. We load them into these, put them on a pallet, wrap them up, and send them on their way. Yeah, it's a lot different than when I started. We were doing a lot of this stuff by hand. Yeah. But there's no way. I may have been in a slightly better shape back then when we were doing everything by hand, but there's no way we could have done this amount of volume without all of this automation. That's all touchscreen. I think that's pretty much it for there. This is our keg washer. So we, dirty kegs come back from the distributors. We clean off the tops of them, load them up 3 at a time. It does a rinse, it evacuates the keg, does a rinse cycle, cleans it with a caustic solution, rinses it again, sanitizes it with an acid solution, and then pressurizes it with CO2. You heard me talk a lot about CO2. We do use a lot of it. One of the main reasons is it's heavier than oxygen, so it will, if you're introducing CO2 into a vessel and there's an outlet, it'll push oxygen out. And that's really important because oxygen is only good for beer at one stage of the process, and that's the very beginning of fermentation. The very beginning of fermentation, when yeast is first getting going, it goes through an aerobic process first where it consumes all the oxygen. So then it's really important. We actually do aerate or oxygenate the wort when we're knocking out or transferring into the fermenter when it's first being introduced to the yeast. Good to have oxygen then. After that, after about the first 24 or 48 hours of the fermentation process, you don't want to introduce oxygen at all, ever, and you're always going to, no matter what, because as you're transferring from one tank to the next, or going into another vessel, whether it be keg or can, there's potential for oxygen to be picked up, and beer is really good at absorbing it really fast. So we try to take every measure we can, pushing oxygen out of the tanks with CO2, pushing oxygen out of the kegs with CO2, out of the cans, pretty much keeping a CO2-rich environment in every vessel that the beer is going to come in contact with to avoid exposure to oxygen and absorption of oxygen. The last thing I got is you guys want to come out here, you can look at the silo. Just maybe point the camera up because the bottom is not the prettiest sight, but you can see we've got two silos here. One of them holds the grain that we're using for brewing, the dry grain, and the other one is holding the spent grain, which is sort of wet that we've already brewed with. So that's kind of the beginning and the end of the process there, of the brew process.
Ask a stupid question. Talk about, hey, I want this beer to pour with this beautiful, beautiful head. And other people go, I don't want to stop that beautiful beer. So you probably don't see it too, but not sure you want to pour it in on the screen without that. Their value in it.
So it all depends on the style, and there's sort of some agreed upon. I don't know the word for it. Standard for each style. There's sort of like a window of volume of CO2 that you kind of want to target. So for most of our core beers, we're right around 2.5, 2.6 volume of CO2. Now, downtown, I just did one a while back in the bottle called Orchard and Shane. I am going to give that a little less carbonation. I want to say I was like 2.1 or 2.3 volume of CO2 for that. Some of the more effervescent beers, so maybe like a Belgian beer or a Hefeweizen or even a seltzer, you may want to go a little bit higher on the CO2. CO2. Now, you got to keep in mind that a lot of draft systems are only set up to pour within a certain window. So even though a style may call for over 3 volumes of CO2, unless you're doing that in a bottle, you probably don't want to go that high because you're going to pour with a whole lot of foam, like we were saying. So it really just all depends on style. You know, whether it's a style that's just meant to be more bubbly and more effervescent, or whether it drinks better with a little more of a flat mouthfeel. Is that it? Are we done?
Hey, I'm sorry you guys got a lot of my schnauzer on the side, but it was fantastic. Wasn't it great?
Yeah, do we have any listener questions, or are we good to go?
I think we're good to go. I haven't had any questions.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Bye.